You're watching Morning at NTV.
Happy New Week. Good morning. Welcome back to Morning at NTV. My name is Malaki Vilodera. Now today on the Kickstarter segment, we are focusing on the dark weekend that was. Of course, on Saturday we saw lives lost on the Lake Victoria, and as of yesterday the death toll was actually at 32 people. Quite unfortunate. And of course the numbers are still growing based on the recoveries of the borders, and this is being undertaken by the UPDF and the police unit, marine unit. So how can we avoid such instances from happening again? And in case you find yourself in such a scenario, how can you go about saving your own life? So that will be the conversation today on Kickstarter. And with me in studios is Mr. Dennis Zamba. He is a diver and a swimming instructor. Welcome to the show. You're welcome. Next to him is Dr. Olive Kobusinje. She is a researcher fellow and principal investigator at Makerere University School of Public Health. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. It was a dark weekend, but it was a dark weekend. But for sure there's something that we can do. I think I'll start with you, Doctor. And there's this research that is still ongoing, of course, with you being at the top of it and at the school, Makerere University. Tell us more about it with regards to life jackets and how important they are.
So the research that's ongoing builds on another research that we did a couple of years ago, and in the first one that we did, we're actually just trying to understand the burden. How big is the problem? How big is the problem of drowning, particularly in the lakeside communities? So we conducted a survey, and we're looking most especially at the lakeside communities, the fishing communities. We're actually collecting data from people that use the landing sites. Mm-hmm. And the results showed us that there were very high rates of drowning, actually far higher than rates that have been recorded anywhere else. And majority of people that were drowning were young. They were mostly between the ages of 25 and 35. They were mostly male, more than 80% were male. Mm-hmm. Most of them were working in the fishing industry, either as fishermen or working on the fishing vessels as boat crew. But there were also lots of other people that were drowning that didn't work in the fishing, so they were using transportation on the lake. Mm-hmm. We both interviewed them and actually watched them get off the boats, and only 1 in 4, so 25% of people that we saw come off the boats were wearing life jackets. Despite the fact that most of them, when you asked them, said, yeah, we've used life jackets before, or we would use them. So people would usually tell you more, like they use their life jackets more, but the observations were different. Mm-hmm. We also wanted to inquire about common reasons why boats capsize, why people drown, and the 3 commonest reasons that we were told were overloading of the boats, were bad weather, and the condition of the boats. Okay. Yeah.
So pretty much the same conditions that were, linked to this particular accident that happened over the weekend. Right. Wow. Okay. Mr. Dennis. Just let us in on this. We were having this conversation and you were saying that, especially now that this accident happened just a few meters from the shore, of course in Mutima Beach. In that scenario, you can imagine there was a lot of panic. As much as I'm sure a good number maybe knew how to swim, but the panic situation, you can imagine some had life jackets, but them that didn't have were holding on to them, and so they ended up drowning. In such an environment, how do you save yourself?
Because I would say basically one thing that people should always do when you're drowning or in that state, the best thing to do is first calm yourself down. Because each time you start panicking, you will think of several things to do. And when someone is drowning, the most funny thing is that even when you get a leaf and you just bring it close to the person, they'll grab it. So anything that is close to them, they'll just grab it to save their lives. So another thing that I would say is, in case you go with your kids to pool or something like that, when you see something like that or someone drowning somewhere, you should at least move away from that person.
Move away from that person?
Yes, if you don't have the idea of saving that person. Because you'll end up trying to save the person, but instead die. Because when someone is drowning, they always have, they're eager to get out of that state. So when you come close to them, they will grab you and then push you down. So that's why whenever we're doing these courses, they always tell you when someone's drowning, come from behind, hold them from behind. But I'm very sure they always say, some of us who deal with this water thing, we tend to think when you know something, the rest will be easy. So I'm very sure some people who are on that boat knew how to swim, but they didn't have the idea of saving someone or getting out of that situation.
Yeah, and there's something that you people call survival swimming.
Yes.
Right.
Tell us about that. What is survival swimming?
Most of the times we call it survival skills. The first thing that someone has to know how to do is called treading. Treading is whereby you're in one place but you keep your head above the water surface. Why do you do that? At least you stay longer as help gets to you. Yes. And then the other thing is we have different types of swimming. We have 4, yeah, but each go with something called elementary swimming. So the elementary swimming is when you swim and the head is completely out. Why do we keep our head out? So that you get access to air easily. So I don't think my colleagues who are actually on the boat really brief these people before setting off.
And that's the thing, Doctor, and I think I'll bring you in on this one. Do we even care? Do we even bother? When you're boarding a plane, before it even sets off, there has to be someone to explain to the passengers that this are the eventualities that might happen, and in the event that it actually happens, for example, we have smoke detectors in case they go on, in case we have an emergency. These are the exit routes. This is how you go about it whenever we have anything, you know, unfamiliar on the plane, whenever we are up there. And it happens, and before the plane sets off, you have to be equipped with this information. They teach you, they take you through it. But when it comes to boat cruises, this hardly happens. Why do we say this? No one is equipped with knowledge on how to save themselves in case of an emergency.
Right, Marla. So, unfortunately, a lot of people, when they get onto the boats, they really are not considering the possibility that they could drown. And the way we prevent that from happening is that actually the planning needs to have been done way before. So, in you know, the example that you give, in air travel, all the precautions have been taken, and when one gets on board, the plane has been, you know, confirmed to be in good condition. Yes. Whoever is operating the plane has actually been certified, and they actually goes through a series of certifications. So there's a lot that is done behind the scenes before people board the plane. And then once they board the plane, of course, they tell them about the precautions that have to be taken, and they ensure that they take them before they take off. So you do not see this being done a lot on water travel, unfortunately, and I think it's because people do not realize how dangerous it is. But even those that do realize, I think there's a culture of a laissez-faire culture. You know, people don't really realize that there's a very small margin for error on the water, that you don't get it wrong twice, that the first time you get it wrong, you know, that's it. And so there's a tendency for people to put their lives in the hands of the boat crew. They've no idea how experienced they are, if they are sober, have been drinking, if their boat is seaworthy, and so on. So I think that because it's something that needs to be legislated and enforced, so that people who, when you get on the plane, you actually don't ask the pilot if they have a license.
Exactly.
You assume that somebody responsible for air travel and air travel safety has taken care of it, that the standards have been followed. So on the one hand, you want as a passenger to be to think about your own safety, but you also would like to have some trust in the system that the necessary precautions have been taken. And as my colleague has said about survival swimming, is that a lot of people who actually use the lake very often can't swim. In the survey that I told you about, more than 50% of the people that are regularly on the lake, either daily or several times a week, can't swim.
Wow.
So they are constantly in danger. They're constantly putting their lives in danger. And while it's very easy to say, but why, how can you put your life in danger in such a manner? Is that when you think about it, swimming skills are not something that we are given the same way we are taught lots of other things. They had to come by, and when you think about the numbers of people that are on the lake and how many swimming instructors we have, what opportunities these people have to actually be taught how to swim, not even, you know, how to become good swimmers, but actually how to survive if they should find themselves in water even for a few minutes. So it's a whole lot of risks that pile on each other to result in the kind of tragedies that we see.
Right. Of course, like you mentioned, we don't have any regulations when it comes to the water space and the operators there. And this came clearly yesterday. And even with the president calling for the registration of this, you know, airboats, both private and public, and for them to be able to be monitored on a constant basis. But Dennis, let us in on this. What are the basic, you know, equipment that have to be in a boat before it sets off?
The best thing I would say, for the first thing that whoever is boarding a boat should be having is a life jacket. I've realized, actually, I've been to boat cruises before, but most of the times they tend to be having fewer life jackets on board. The times you go, they have, let's say, literally 20, and the boat has over 100 people. So, first thing, life jackets. The second thing, life-saving ring.
What's that? Is it the big rings that you see that look like floaters?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the things that have to be there. And then a rope. Yeah, because if you have, let's say, 2 to 3 life-saving rings, and you have like 4 or 5 people in the water, yes, you'll give them life-saving rings. Yes, 2 or 3 people hold on to them. Then you need a rope to save someone who doesn't have a life-saving ring. But if you don't have any of those, I don't think your boat is good to go.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Doctor, he mentioned life jackets. I've been on a boat cruise, and not every life jacket is in a good condition, yes, but you're just given to put on. Some of them don't have even zips or something to fasten onto your body. So when it comes to life jackets, explain to us the characteristics of a life jacket that is in a good condition that can actually save you when you come to an emergency. How should a good life jacket look like?
Well, so the word life jacket is used quite loosely, but maybe a more correct term would be a flotation device.
Okay.
And there's several types of flotation devices. The reason we make that distinction is that when you say life jacket, well, there are specifications for life jackets. And the idea is that it should be able to keep your torso afloat above water.
Okay.
And they usually will come with, so different countries have different standards, but they usually come with weights, for instance, that will say, Milas, you know, this jacket will be able to keep you afloat. It might not keep somebody afloat if they are double your weight.
Wait.
Not all like that.
Doctor, you're bringing something new on the table. So my life jacket will not necessarily be ideal for you, depending on my body size and my weight.
Right. So they have those specifications because the materials out of which they make the life jackets, over time, every life jacket will absorb a certain amount of water, but they're made in such a way that, for instance, they're able to carry certain weights, and they're able to carry them in water for certain lengths of time. So, and usually the assumption is that that there's going to be a search and rescue, and most of them will keep you afloat, for instance, for 12 hours.
12 hours?
Right. But they also are usually specific to what kinds of waters. So, for instance, a jacket that will keep somebody afloat in calm waters might not keep them afloat or save them in stormy waters. So, if you see the kind of flotation devices that are used in swimming pools, they're usually very calm, there's no panic, there are no waves. It's a totally different flotation device that you need if you're in Lake Victoria or if you're actually out in the high seas. The other distinction that is made is if this flotation device or life jacket has a piece that will keep your head afloat, your head out of the water. Because if people are not able to swim, then it means that actually they do not instinctively have the capacity to keep their heads up. So they will need to wear something that will actually keep their heads above water.
So is this something that is part of the life jacket?
Right, part
Okay.
of certain types of life jackets. So if you're buying a life jacket, if you have a cruise boat, or any leisure boat, and you're buying life jackets, you want to pay attention to those. Is this the kind of life jacket that will actually keep the head of the person wearing it above water? Because it's possible that that person will actually be in water, have the life jacket, and because there's a tendency for the water, especially if it's not calm waters, to tip the body, so it's possible that this person will actually take in enough water and drown. So not all life jackets are created equal. But what we discovered during the survey was that there actually also lots of life jackets that are not truly flotation devices, that they are simply tailored, they have the fluorescent lighting, so color, so you think they are useful, they are wearing a flotation device, but actually as soon as the person is in the water, they take in water and the person drowns. It was heartbreaking to hear that some of the people tell us that these life jackets are fake, and the reason we wear them is because we want to escape. The police is going to come and ask why we don't have life jackets, and the only good reason is that our bodies will be found quicker if we have these things on. So,
it's such a casual, kind of attitude.
Right.
Quite unfortunate.
So there needs to be a standard, and usually these standards are set by countries. So the Bureau of Standards, for instance, would state the standard of life jackets that should be on the market, and they would be enforced, so that you and I do not make our life jackets in our garages, and sell them to unsuspecting people who are obviously going to be in trouble once they find themselves in the water.
Wow, I don't know how to move on with this conversation. Dennis let us in on this one. Life jackets, she said that a majority actually fake. You just don't have to say that, okay, fine, I have a life jacket, I should be fine. But even the quality, where it was made and stuff like that. But when it comes to swimming, just let us in on this one. Someone once said that, I'm a pro when it comes to swimming, I'm this good. So when I put on a life jacket, actually, and an emergency actually occurs, it will hinder me from swimming. Is that correct?
No, it's not. It's not, because actually when you have kids in the pool and some of them have the jackets with them, they tend to land and float easily when they have what? The jackets. So if I have a jacket and I know how to swim, how does that hinder me from swimming from here to the other side? And I tend to move faster. Since I'm on top of the water and I use my hands, I'll get to the other side faster than someone who doesn't have the floating object on them.
So it's not true.
It's not true.
It's not true.
No.
Let's talk about regulation. We've just realized that it's not just about checking the mechanical condition of these water vessels, but also the equipment, safety equipment that are in there. Where do we start as a government? Even yesterday's letter from the president clearly, pointed out that there's zero regulation, or if at all there is, the enforcement is not there. So, Doctor, where do we start as a country? Where do we start?
Sometimes we're so far in that indeed we say, where do we start? This is not a problem that is only facing Uganda. There are lots of other countries that are in this kind of situation. And thankfully, there have been recent developments in this area. So in 2014, the World Health Organization came up with this report, the Global Report on Drowning. It had international contributions, including some from Uganda. And it was quickly followed on to by something called the Preventing Drowning and Implementation Guide.
Okay.
Now, this gives step by step what a country can do to ensure water safety. And in fact, it details the kinds of risks that we would be trying to overcome and what interventions and what strategies can be used, including, setting up a national water safety action plan, developing policies, developing guidelines, and interventions in the various areas, those that would affect, for instance, safe boating, ensuring that vessels are safe in the waters, ensuring that they are, people are trained in search and rescue, and that there's infrastructure for search and rescue, and what kind of infrastructure. It's a fairly detailed implementation guide. It talks about survival swimming and what kind of people can be taught and what level of skill is necessary for one to survive in water. It talks about huge vessels, it talks about small vessels, you know, so the kind of legislation and the kind of guidelines, regulations that would pertain to, for instance, a ferry, as opposed to what are called small vessels, those that are below 12 meters in length.
Right.
So there's a lot of help out there, but actually even with regard to Lake Victoria and Uganda in particular, there are laws that have been set. They might not be they might not be very recent, but they do contain sufficient, I think, sufficient content to guide where to begin.
So the issue is enforcement and implementation of this particular laws.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And it takes investment, because things don't just snap into, you know, into place.
Yeah.
It means that we have to be investing not just in the policies and the development of the guidelines and the necessary regulations, but the human resources that are going to be needed to do that.
Exactly that. And the president said that maybe the first step would be to register these particular vessels, both private and public. Is that a good direction to take, a good first step to actually take with regards to at least trying to see how we can regulate that space?
I don't know about first step, but it's clearly something that should have been done way back. You know, it's not something we should be thinking about now. It's obvious. I mean, we see road travel, and nobody is wondering if we should register cars.
Right.
Nobody's discussing it. You know, so why do we allow vessels that transport people, goods, on the largest the second largest freshwater lake? It's not something that we can ignore. It's a huge waterways, you know, with huge revenues coming off it. So I think that it really is in some ways negligent that it didn't happen sooner.
Mr. Dennis, let us in on this one. Of course, when it comes to regulations, and the other thing that has been brought to the fore is with the pilot, like you said, of course, you can't even doubt that this pilot for sure has gone through school and is a certified and a licensed pilot. When it comes to driving, you're actually obliged to go through driving school and obtain that license. But we don't see the same thing in, boats and maybe private boats and stuff like that. So in your view, especially with regards to mitigating emergencies, what ideally should be the skills that should be equipped to this particular skippers and boat crews, kind of navigators?
The first thing I would say is we shouldn't wait for situations like we're in to happen before we think of what we're actually talking about right now. Most of the time, some things happen and then we act afterwards. Let's try to prevent instead of
Reacting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's try to prevent. I wouldn't want someone to wait to be on a boat cruise, and then at the end of the day, when something goes wrong, then you're like, oh, I wish I went and learned how to swim. Let's not think that swimming is something for the rich. That's what actually some people say, that swimming is expensive or what. Our people who always navigate those boats, I doubt whether all of them know how to swim. So as a government, I would just ask the government to try to put some rules or regulations regarding that, and then they make sure that whoever is operating those vessels has ideas on how to handle such situations.
Doctor, let's just get into it. Maybe we're just raising dust over nothing, and maybe we actually don't have such schools here. When it comes to driving schools, we have many driving schools around. Of course, when it comes to piloting and stuff like that, aviation schools are there, accessible. But do we have schools that are just skewed to train, such staff that operate in the water spaces? Do we have such in the country?
Not that I know of, but I know there are a number of mostly NGOs that have come up to train people in life saving. So life saving is a skill and it's something that you don't get as you see a boat go down. It means that, again, you would have prepared, you would have trained people in life-saving.
Wait a minute, doctor. So what you're saying is NGOs that help in training people in life-saving skills, meaning that a majority of them, the skippers and navigators that we actually go with, render our lives to on boat cruises, are not trained?
They're not. And many of them have never heard of the Uganda Swimming Federation, Swim Safe Uganda, they've never heard of any of this. It's only very recently that these NGOs have been getting together and setting up trainings and trying to get the people that you're talking about to come and participate in the training. But you know, Mala, a lot of the people that use, so there's life, what's the word I'm looking for? There are people that are on the boat as for their livelihood. They are fishing,
yes.
They are trading, they are there to earn a living. And there are people that are on the lake for leisure, like the boat that just went down. The people that are on the lake for their livelihood, the majority of those people learn from their fathers how to fish, or from their uncles how to fish, or from their, whoever, how to manage the boat. There's no school they go to, there's no training they go to learn how to become fishermen.
Right.
Yeah.
It's out of experience. It was passed over to me.
They're just taken along,
yeah.
and eventually they get their own boat. So it would need a lot of effort, and indeed effort, they should be done to ensure that whoever is going to be on the lake has the skills they need. So they're going to need both skills. They're going to need the skills to manage the vessel, and
yes.
they're going to need the life-saving skills. They're going to need survival skills for themselves, but they're going to need life-saving skills so that in case somebody on their boat gets into the water, how
yeah.
do they rescue them? What do they do to resuscitate them?
Okay.
A lot of times we undertake trainings for survival and for resuscitation, and we're thinking about swimming pools or about other bodies or small bodies of water, because there you don't have you have only maybe 4 minutes once somebody is in the water
right.
to save them. Beyond that, you're just retrieving the body. You're not actually going to search and rescue someone.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the lake, that's why the people that have the skills to actually rescue someone and resuscitate them need to be there. They need to be on the boat,
right.
or they need to be very close. Otherwise, the time
yeah.
that it would take for someone to come from Kigo to go even 200 meters,
it will be too late.
By the time they get there, the person has been in the water for longer than 40 minutes and they've probably expired.
Wow, we need to come to a close, but in a nutshell, before I even, okay, fine, maybe I've paid my tickets, I've paid everything, and I'm geared up, I'm ready to go on this boat cruise. What should I look out for? Immediately I step in. What should I look out for? Something that I know if I miss this, I'd rather miss out on the fun. Mr. Dennis, then we come to doctor as we come to a close.
What do you miss out for? I would say the first thing to do when you've cleared whatever you've cleared to go for boat cruise, when you get on the board, please ask for a life jacket.
Okay.
Yes.
And check the condition of the life jacket.
Yeah.
If it's poor, don't go.
Yeah, but
yeah.
Most of us, when we're going for this cruise, we go to happen to
yeah.
enjoy. So when you see,
we go to happen.
yes.
That's a new one too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when we see our life jacket is in a sorry state, we tend to keep quiet. Just put it on. After all, I have a life jacket.
Yeah.
If I take it off and then I reach that there's nothing, what will I do? Let me just go. Actually, I've seen this happen. Most of the times when you're given the life jacket, there's some of us who get on the boats
and remove them. Yeah.
You drop it down. Then the person tells you, or the diver or whoever is on the boat is like, hey, you're supposed to be able to. I want to enjoy. It's making me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I want to swim.
Okay.
I know how to swim.
All right. So life jacket, doctor. As you come to a close on second, what to look out for?
So I think maybe if there was a way you could check what kind of company runs this and what their safety track record is.
Okay.
This is something that I think would be helpful, because the average person, the average consumer will not walk onto a boat and know whether this is a safe boat or not. It's
right.
the same way you won't walk onto a plane and know if it's safe, or a vehicle if it's safe. But certainly if somebody gives you a life jacket, if they demonstrate how to wear the life jacket.
Demonstrate. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Doctor. Oh, we need more time to have this conversation, and we sure need to do it practically sometime. Of course, we'll organize for that. So that has been it for Kickstarter segment. Keep your views coming. The hashtag is Morning at 10 TV across all social media platforms. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Morning at 10 TV still continues. Up next is Andrew Chamagero with Reality on the Ground. Don't go away.